So Paula, you're here, and I'd love it if you would take time now to introduce yourself, your role, talk about your time with McMaster, any other personal anecdotes that you would like to share to kick off our conversation, and then we're going to dig into some good Q&A and really interactive conversation today. So welcome, and over to you.
Thank you, Gayleen, and it's a pleasure being here with you, having this conversation and talking to folks about my journey into technology. I am the director for campus infrastructure systems here at McMaster, and what that really means is that I'm responsible for areas like telecommunications, the data network, wired and wireless, data centers, server storage. So really the core infrastructure that really supports the university. And I like to refer to my team as the team that sort of builds and takes care of the pathway and the roadway that the rest of the campus community will use to develop and build out their business, the academic side of things, and we allow folks to actually get their work done. So
wonderful, and thank you very much for that. And this is, how long have you been in this particular director position now, Paula? Can you refresh my memory? I should know that off the top of my head, but I don't.
I'm going to say it's around 2 years now, starting out as the acting director and then interviewing for the position of director. We started the conversation around me moving into the role just at the start of the pandemic. So it was like, yay. Great time to start. Lots of challenges ahead, but we were able to sort of move through and work through a lot of things together. And the team accomplished quite a bit, even during the pandemic. We were able to sort of build out that whole wireless network and making sure that, the wireless network was there and available for folks both inside and outside around the campus.
Yeah, that was a very big undertaking. And thank you and congratulations. You're into the multiple years now in this particular role. This is not your first and only role here at McMaster. So I'm wondering if we might be able to talk a little bit about your journey to become a director of IT within higher education. And then more broadly, how did you get into Canadian higher education as well? Because that's always an interesting thing for people who are, I think, learning a little bit about you for the first time, or maybe don't know that journey as well. So if you wanted to take us through some of that, and then we can dig in a little deeper as well.
Sure. So my background, and I came from the banking industry. The organization that I worked for previous to McMaster was owned by the bank. So things were very strict and structured in terms of how things were done there. And I was actually headhunted out of that organization by McMaster because they were looking for someone to fill the need in the telecommunication space. And yes, that's kind of where I cut my teeth in terms of technology, fell in love with telecommunications, have a huge passion for the field. So I was headhunted, as I said, out of my previous organization into McMaster. And one of the things that really stands out for me when I came on campus for my first interview, this is an introduction to higher ed, so I've never worked in the space before. It was quite interesting. Came on campus, walked through the student center, and the question I had for myself at the time is, does this feel like home? And when I say home, my work home, how comfortable am I going to be in this space? And, is it going to really work for me? So those are questions that I asked myself at the start of the interview, walking through campus, walking through the student center, and observing the university for the first time with a different set of eyes. Is it where I want to work? So that's kind of my journey leading up to working in higher ed, working at McMaster. Started out in client services with the intent to move into sort of telecommunications. And telecommunications, at the time, we kind of put it with client services at the time. A big portion of it was with client services. So I did sort of start out at McMaster in client services. I remember getting a whole bunch of folks on the team. There wasn't really a lot of structure around the team. My CIO at the time sat down and said, here's some folks that I'm handing over to you. Here's what I'd like to accomplish. You set it up, you figure it out. So working with Heather Grigg, who was my director at the time, really try and sort out what the client services team should look like, structure the help desk, service desk, set that up, hired folks to actually work there, and working through and getting a lot of support from Heather at the time. Because for me, the requirements and the demand was quite huge, which doesn't always match the resources that you have available. So that was kind of my first introduction into working in higher ed, because again, the demands are quite large. You don't always have the resources to get it done. And what really worked for me and kept me going at McMaster was Heather, and getting mentored and supported by Heather, who was worked at the university for a number of years herself. I remember going around to different committee meetings, getting introduced to a lot of folks, because Heather was all about building the relationship as well. She was also exceedingly creative at getting things done. So I would oftentimes sit with her and say, this is what I'd like to do. This is my plan. Not sure how I can get it done. And she would come up with really innovative ideas in terms of how I can actually get it done and how I can accomplish things. And a huge part of that is around collaboration, working with the campus community. And it's no different back then as it is today, because I think that is a critical part of your success at working in higher ed and specifically here at McMaster. So part of my journey through McMaster has been, working and participating on various committees, getting to know my campus partners, getting to know folks around the campus in different areas so that if I need something, if I have a question, I can reach out, and I have folks and know folks in various areas that I can say, hey, I need some help here. You may not be the right person, but maybe you can help direct me and I can connect with the right person. So again, it's building those bridges and building those relationships that really allow you to be successful here at Mac and navigating that. And that's part of the journey that I really enjoy, because again, I'm a people person, love people, love working with people. It is what really gives me joy in my job.
That's beautiful. And I think, there's lots of people here. So this is a good thing, right? As a starting point. But, I think it's really interesting. So we've talked to different people who've come out of different areas and into higher education, and yourself from a banking background. I'm interested a little bit in a couple of things from that. I mean, banking is a very structured environment with a lot of process policies, pretty rigid in terms of the flexibility. And you've already talked about some of that flexibility that was offered to you when you came here, and just the idea that, there's some really different and creative ways we can get things done. So that's really different. The other thing that you and I did talk about the other day, Paula, and I think it'd be really interesting for people is when you came to McMaster from that environment, you were not the only person who did, which is always fascinating. There are these sort of stories in higher ed past, if I can say it like that, where people were coached or there was a headhunting kind of activity. And once one person came, there seemed to be, sometimes there's that track of other people coming along as well, because they hear, hey, this is a great place, or hey, there's something really interesting here. So two pieces there. Maybe you can talk a little bit about the cohort that joined you and some of that, and how that helped you as you found your way in higher ed. But then I'm very interested in that transition. What was it like to go from really rigid and structured into this especially when you came here, which it's been, a while, there's maturation that has happened since then, but curious about that sense of real freedom.
Yeah. So in terms of the cohort, it's myself. Christine Bernanke was the first individual that started out here at Mac. And when they were looking for project resources, reached out to Patricia Gerling. Patricia joined the organization. And then when they were looking for other resources. Patricia was familiar with my work in our other organizations. So, she mentioned my name to a few folks and they reached out to me. The same with Carmelita Larkin. So we all came from that background and we were able to sort of navigate and support each other in terms of making the transition into higher ed. And you touched a little on about the difference in transitioning from a banking industry to a more flexible organization. The challenge for me with the structure of the bank, sort of what you need to do. You ask for funding to do what you need to do. You got your funding to do what you need to do. And for me, that was a huge difference. And not necessarily, in a positive way, because I really struggled with it because I know what sort of the organization was looking for. I know what the expectation was, and trying to build that out and make it happen. It was really frustrating to try to accomplish all these things without the funding behind it. And again, the struggle was, how do I get it all done without the funding? Because I'm used to that structure that, I go in front of my board, I make my pitch, I get my funding, and, we're all good for the next year or two. Here, it's not quite the same. Again, the demand, the expectation is fairly high, and how do you achieve what you need to without that, fixed funding? So this is where I'm saying Heather was a great mentor for me, and I'm still here because of Heather, right? Because there are days when I got frustrated because I couldn't get things done. I didn't have the funds to do it. And we would sit down and really get creative in terms of how we can accomplish things. And part of the lesson learned for me is around the collaborative part of things, where you do have areas of the university that want very similar things done. And sometimes it's often reaching out and working together and putting both their limited funds together to actually accomplish things and, being able to move that needle forward. So again, collaboration and working together really allows someone to be successful here at the university. So, if I can advise folks in one thing, it's always reaching out and building those bridges and building relationships, because it will really carry you a long way.
It sounds like Heather had quite an influence on you early in your career here. Let's talk a little bit about that mentorship path and some of the relationships that you've had, because, we all know that we report to people and we have different people who influence or impact us in our life. But I'm curious if you could talk a little bit about some of the strong women in tech that you have learned from through the years and have supported you. I think all of us have stories of people who've really seen our potential and have helped us, but who we also get to learn from, because mentorship is about an example and someone trying to show you the way. And so this creativity piece that you're talking about is one example of that. Do you have other examples and other people that you'd like to shout out about?
So through my journey in tech, I have actually worked with and reported to a lot of really exceedingly strong women. I have not had a lot of male reports. I have had a lot of male support, not always a direct reporting relationship, but a lot of support in that space as well. One of what I would consider best advice that I got from one of my male supporters, and he was the VP for the organization. When I was leaving that organization, his recommendation for me is to make sure that I always have people with whatever I do, because that is one of the strong things that I bring to the table. I'm really good with people. I enjoy people, and whatever I do, just make sure I have people involved in that. And again, back to the strong women that I've reported to in my previous company, I reported into, again, really, really strong female leader. And it's learning and being mentored by a lot of these women in terms of what they've accomplished. And they're oftentimes being, almost the lone female in that field. So it's really learning to navigate and sort of build out what you want to accomplish, and being strong about it, and being, comfortable and confident in your abilities to be able to deliver on things that's being asked of you. And also seeking that support, building, again, that strong relationship that you can sit down and say, this may not be working the way you expected to, and you might be struggling with this, but being able to have that open conversation that you may not have all the answers, and that you can reach out and get support. And I've always gotten the support from, again, our strong leaders, or at least my strong leaders, and that includes yourself, Gayleen. So, we can sit and we can have conversations about, what we want to do down the road, what the plans are when things are not working, put our heads together and come out with a stronger solution, rather than, sitting back and thinking and struggling with things, thinking, oh my gosh, I don't understand this, or I'm struggling with it. It's not working the way I want it to work. Sometimes it's really throwing it out there and asking for help when you need it, and, if I can switch back a little on, some of my male supporters, and I have to give a shout out to Richard Gottsmark as well, because he was a huge supporter of mine in moving into this role. And he showed a lot of confidence in me and my abilities, and really supported me in moving into this role. So
thank you for that. And there's always people play big and small parts, obviously, in our mentorship, I guess, journey, if I can say it like that. And I think that's great. I really, one of the things I really appreciate is the recognition that you can learn a lot from seeing other women achieve, be creative, do things. And, we talk about this, and I had this conversation with somebody else yesterday as well, really being able to see people in action and acknowledge that it's possible. It's actually possible to be part of the leadership track and to get things done using your own style and approach, the creativity aspect and things like that. And I think that's great. The vulnerability piece, I have to think, in some ways, coming out of a banking background, something that's a little bit more zipped up from the private sector, and coming into this sort of environment. I mean, it can be really hard in higher education to be vulnerable and to say, I don't know the answer to that. We work in a very distributed environment here. So any thoughts about that sense of, how do you build yourself up for vulnerability, and any, I don't know, has that been a challenge in any way for you, or do you feel like that's something that's had to come with some good coaching and encouragement from others?
For me, it comes with encouragement, coaching from others, but again, really believing in yourself in the areas that you are comfortable in, and reaching out and learning about the areas that you don't know about. Because when I was asked to manage the network team, I'm going to reach out and say, and give a shout out to Andrew, Andrew Roach. I spent a lot of time with Andrew sort of coaching me around the wireless, and, what are the expectations of wireless and how it's structured, and the governing body for wireless, and, really sharing his knowledge with me, but that required me to be able to be comfortable with Andrew to say, hey, can you share some of your knowledge with me? And he was quite comfortable doing it. I was quite comfortable learning from Andrew, because Andrew's that hands-on guy that knows all about it. So, who best to learn from? So sometimes you do have to put yourself in that position, and really and truly understanding and sharing with your team that this is not always about command and control. For me, leadership is about collaboration. It is about sharing with your team. It's about supporting your team and understanding what they bring to the table, leveraging what they bring to the table, and really enhancing what they are able to offer and help them grow, right? So that's kind of my people side coming out, where for me, again, what gives me joy is really seeing someone, whether it's someone that reports to me or someone in another team, and being able to help guide and support them and watch them grow in their, careers and achieving things, whether it's, within my team, or they need to leave my team to achieve that, or even leave the organization to achieve it, but really seeing them grow and flourish and, be successful. That's what gives me joy.
Well, first of all, anytime someone talks about joy with their work, I think there's success all around that, because we know when we're feeling like we're delivering and feeling really an affinity for what we do, how can we not but succeed? There's so many interesting things to pick at here, Paula. So I want to start first with the conversation about leading a team of mostly men, and and moving into, somebody out there can correct me if I'm wrong on this. I'm happy to take it. But you may be the only female director of infrastructure across our Canadian higher ed IT university environment anyway. It's a unique role for a woman to have, I would say, in higher education IT. We're moving in that direction, but we're still, even in the CIO level, we're still only 30% from a female perspective. And, it takes a bit of courage, because to your point, you've just given the example of moving from the telecom over into the larger network environment and that whole piece, and needing to learn on the go. And so infrastructure has a lot of components to it that are highly technical, and a highly technical team. So I'm curious for you, because this again is an area where, we want to encourage people to think of anything as possible, and it really is. And how much depth do you need to have? What is it that you felt was helpful to you as you got on board leading your team? Just any words of wisdom around taking on something that's quite unique, such as the position that you have.
So from a cultural perspective, I'm going to say that I am an infrastructure individual at heart, because infrastructure people do not like the limelight. So this conversation we're having, Paul is not 100% comfortable with it. However,
J+ for courage. Good job.
However, again, I'm an infrastructure person at heart, and, managing a team of mostly males, they're all infrastructure folks as well. So they themselves don't necessarily like the limelight either. They like to, get the acknowledgement to say, yes, you guys did a great job, but we don't have to be in the limelight. So I think for me, that is kind of part of what pulls the team together and holds the team together. We have a very common understanding of infrastructure, and we all have a passion for it. Right? It's taking what you have and what you're responsible for, and taking it to heart and taking it very seriously, that, you always have your eye on the ball. You're always watching for things, and you want to do a great job, right? And it's understanding that from the team, and really supporting them in understanding and bringing their best self to the table, and really helping them to grow in that space, And when we're taking on new technology, really embracing the new technology, be open to learning new things, reaching out to other organizations who have more experience in it. Again, building that network, that collaboration as well, and really going forward with it and having the confidence that, yeah, we can all do this. And for me, I don't need to have that major deep dive hands-on knowledge of the technology, because at the end of the day, I am not the one that's actually in there configuring things, setting it up. I do, however, need to understand how it works, how it integrates with the rest of the technology structure around us, and making sure that it's architected properly so that it works as the university needs it to work, right? And it's having those conversations with the team and putting it all on the table and saying, you're the hands-on expert, share with us what it is that you think we should be doing, and being able to support that and understanding what they're saying and understand what they're bringing to the table, and having, again, a good understanding of how it all fits together. So I think that's the key, versus having that deep dive hands-on knowledge. That's not necessary, because if you have a strong team that really knows what they're doing and passionate about their work, that's what you will get out of them. They are the ones that are in there doing the work, and the support that they need to encourage them to continue to do those work and to continue to learn and grow as well. I see that as my job, right? So it's not necessarily, fighting with them for that screwdriver. It's handing it over to them and having them run with it. And then I'm going to provide them with whatever additional tools they need to get the job done.
That's great. Yeah, that's, and one of the things I'd like to say, and I jokingly said this, but I think there really is, there's an amount of courage that goes into entering into spaces that may not have that, you don't feel like you know everything about everything. And I don't know if this is a true quote or not, but I'm going to say, vulnerability is courage, and having courage is vulnerable, because you have to be able to say, I'm going to step into something, I'm going to do the best I can. But what you're talking about is really having the courage and the vulnerability to say, I don't know, and I believe in you, and we're going to work on this together and get something done. And I think that's a really great leadership example. So thank you for the good work that you're doing there, and obviously to your team that we are hugely reliant on at this institution in so many different ways. They do wonderful work for us, and they're always ready to step up. And, you've had a lot of success in leading that group. So I want to highlight that as well. I think that, there's a real thread in some of the things that you've been talking about. Some of it's around the mentorship you've received, but a lot of it is about how you support your team, how you support others around you. So I want to tap into mentorship, because we have talked, it's threaded through all the conversations I've had with the other leaders I've had conversations with. And it is really, it is part of, it's almost an expectation or a need in leadership to be able to mentor others. I wonder if you can talk a little bit about some of the work, if I can call it that, or some of the joy you've received in providing mentorship for others, the importance that in receiving that, but how do you then turn around and pay it back, if I can say it like that, to the people around you that work for you and or others? Because we peer mentor, sometimes you mentor me on things like, that's an important kind of circle, 360 degrees of mentorship. But for you, what have been some of your successes that you think other people can learn from and give some thought to?
So there's a number of folks that have sort of flowed through my team, that are still on my team, that I've sort of mentored and coached, and some coached at the door and have gone to bigger and better things. Some are still here with me, and I'm gonna probably pick on Tara as an example, that she was responsible for bits and pieces of telecommunications. When I started out, she was more considered an admin person than a technical person. And it's working with her and understanding where her passion is. And it is in telecom. And she does understand the technical pieces. And it's working with her providing the training opportunities to build on her technical skills. And if I can boldly say that today, she, unofficially manages a lot of that telecommunications space, working with a lot of our campus community partners and, making sure that their telecommunications needs are being met. So it's, if you look at her journey as well, and her journey isn't finished yet, right? So, we continue to work with her on sort of building out her skill set, right? Because I strongly believe she's got a lot to offer, and it's really leveraging what she brings to the table. And if I can pick on someone else who is no longer part of my team, and I like to name names. So I'm going to pick on Saravana, who was part of the network team. He came in to us as a student. I actually really, I spent time with Saravana understanding sort of where he wants to go, what his passion was. And I actually offered him a position on the team before he was finished school. So, I had to give him time back to go finish his degree. And yes, he's graduated with his engineering degree. But he is no longer with McMaster. He is now the network manager for University of Guelph. So, it's working with folks to really build out their passion and help and watch them grow. And it's not just staff in terms of mentoring. And, I'm going to pick on another individual, Kurum, that has, straight out with me in the early days. He was really passionate and interested in telecommunications. He figured out that I managed the telecom team. As a student, he connected with me, really, quizzed me around telecommunications, spent a lot of time hanging out with me, understanding, learning things. And I really worked with Kurum through finishing his again, engineering degree. He started out working as a TA, then, saw an interesting opportunity at Avaya. I reached out to my Avaya contacts to say, hey, I've got an engineering student that is interested. And before I could even finish my sentence, they had two of their engineers on campus interviewing him. Again, he's moved into that space and have grown and have achieved a lot of success in that space. And we still stay connected even today. So we've been friends for quite a long time, almost for my entire journey here. So again, it's just working with people, understanding what people are looking for, and wherever you can possibly make a difference for them, just help and make that difference.
Yeah, I love those stories, and there's so much that's practical in terms of mentorship, but a lot of it's encouragement, isn't it? When you just, people just need someone to be able to say, you're doing a great job. Yes, you can. Yeah. Here's some ideas, but you're the one who can do it, and you can do it. All of that encouragement really goes a long way for people. I think when we get really busy and there's a lot on people's plates, the thank yous, the yes, you can, the you've done it, you can, all of those pieces that sometimes get washed away with the urgency of their activities. It's really important, isn't it? Encouragement. We feel that.
Yeah, we do. Yeah. And it's again, understanding what it is that they are looking for. And sometimes they themselves may not always recognize it, but if, again, you are good with people, you learn to listen a lot. And I am the type of individual that I listen more than I talk. So again, talking, for me is just not the thing. I like to listen a lot. So I hear sometimes what they're looking for, and sometimes you can even pull out of them the things that they're passionate about, but they may not always recognize it. And then you kind of build on it, hone in on it, and you really see the passion come out and see them, flourish and bloom and grow. and it's really paying attention and it's listening.
Agree with that. You recently went through the Cuccio Leadership Development Program for aspiring IT leaders in higher ed. I'm curious for you in what you're seeing as you think about that experience and across higher education, those folks who are moving towards leadership. Are there common threads? What for you? Could you talk a little bit about what that learning experience was and other opportunities you've had to tap into learning along your career? Because I think that's another part of it. Mentorship's one piece, but really getting an opportunity to get exposure to other ideas and people is another.
So for me, the Cuccio Leadership Program, what I walked away with and what I got out of the program is really and truly having a good understanding of the structure of the educational sector. So coming in from banking, you don't always have the know-how in terms of how decisions are made, why you have money or the other group does not have money, and who makes decisions around what. So for me, what I really took away from that leadership program is a really strong understanding of how the university is structured, what part of the university makes what decisions and the impact it has. And, for me, it's, working in that infrastructure space, really understanding the value of what we bring to the table, and that, our role here is a support role. Right? Faculty is here to teach the students. University is all about the students. So, if you keep your eye on the fact that we're here for the students, right? And it's really providing that support that will allow the faculty to deliver on the things that they need to deliver on. That's our core mission. And it's really helping me understand sort of where these pockets of decisions are made and why these decisions are made as well. So it really gave me a really solid foundation in terms of when I need something, where do I reach out? Who do I reach out to? Who makes those decisions? So it really gave me that really solid groundwork in terms of decision-making process around the organization. And again, it's really reaching out and building relationships. And it's not just building relationships within the university, that's critical, but it's also building relationships within, different sectors. Because again, telecommunications, building out relationships there. One of the things that, you and I haven't had a chance to talk about this, but, other universities really look to McMaster in terms of that telecommunication space and what we're doing. A lot of times before they make a leap, they reach out and they ask the team, they ask me, what are your plans? What are you doing? What are you doing with this technology? How are you moving in that space? So again, it's building that relationship. And similarly in the data space as well, data networking spaces, it's really making connections, and not just inside, but external to the university, in the industry, folks that are using, similar technology. What are they doing with it? What are their plans with it? How are they moving forward? What is their plan for the future? And again, making the connection, whether it's within the educational space, but in the data networking space. So again, it's just building a really strong network of folks that can support you, and you can, provide support to them as well.
Yeah, well, certainly I can say that is one of the really wonderful benefits of being in this sector is we're not competing in the same way as some of our colleagues maybe in private sector and other areas. There's certainly competition, don't get me wrong, but for the work that we do, it is very open, a lot of sharing, which is a wonderful. It's wonderful because similarly, we reach out and ask lots of people, what are they doing as well? So, I think it's a great opportunity to talk to you about telecommunications, one of your passion areas. and to say, what do you think? I mean, telecom has changed a lot over the last, number of years as you've gone through your career. What do you have any thoughts, crystal ball ideas to the future about telecommunications and the technologies and what's yet to come?
It's changing, just like technology is changing, may not necessarily change quickly as some would in, let's say, the data space possibly, but it is definitely changing. And I can, share an example. Right now we've got, I think, 8 contact centers that were at one point, on campus. We had COVID. There was a challenge, connecting and managing those contact centers. Some of them had to shut down because, we weren't able to do anything about it. Those contact centers are now running in the cloud, in the Avaya cloud. And feedback that we've had from a lot of those contact center managers is that they absolutely love it. They love the flexibility it's giving them because they're able, again, in our hybrid setup, they're able to manage their call center, whether they're physically on campus or they're working from home. It's irrelevant where they are located. They can still manage their contact center. Their agents can actually log in either on campus, working from, it doesn't matter where they are. So again, that provides us with the flexibility to be able to support that hybrid work. And again, the soft client that we have running, we don't need that physical phone on people's desk anymore. We're not necessarily deploying a lot of those. It's that soft client that's running on your computer. I personally have my extension number running on my laptop as well as my cell phone, so that I can still get the McMaster generated calls. I don't necessarily have to use my cell phone to make those calls either. So it's really looking at the technology and, looking at things that we can offload, take it off-prem into the cloud and allow us to do and have more flexibility in that space. So it's just looking at things like that. And again, being able to utilize AI and machine learning to really change the way we do things. So that's the direction I see it going in, that we are going to be able to do a lot more with a lot less that's on-prem. And, there's a lot of application merger that's happening that we can, do things using different applications. And again, focusing in on, using the tool that is best suited for that purpose, and then putting things together that makes it easier for, our campus community to actually get their work done. Make it very simple.
Yeah, and I think that's obviously the hybrid work environment. The flexibility there is so critically important. And some of the work that you and your team did before COVID, we never really know how forward thinking we are until we're looking backwards at something that got done and just in the nick of time, if we can say it like that, and how helpful that has been. So definitely some really smart moves and smart advances in our area around telecommunications. I think the call centers in the cloud is really a fantastic example. So thanks for highlighting that. I do think it's kind of an interesting thing because we are seeing so much integration across tool sets now and lots of options for doing things the same way. It's actually one of the exciting parts of the work that we're doing, as much as it means really thinking through solutions and answers, but it is exciting to think about the possibilities as well. We only have a little bit of time left. I wanted to just talk a little bit about your leadership here on campus as well, Paula, if you don't mind. You've participated in a number of different committees and activities. You were part of the TMG leadership. And the reason I highlight this, first of all, is just to recognize you and your willingness to take on these additional, non-core responsibility areas. The CUCHO leadership activity is another example that's even beyond the institution. I'm wondering from a leadership perspective, if you can talk a little bit about how those additional responsibilities that you have volunteered for, they're really volunteer opportunities, have helped you to hone your leadership skills and to help you in your career advancement, because those are really important areas. Sometimes people really think about the work they do, but there's a whole wonderful array of opportunities that people can take to be involved. But do you mind talking about that a little bit? Because I think it's so critical and it's so representative of your leadership style.
So for me, it's again building the relationships, and that this volunteer opportunities, when they do come up, allow you to build out those relationships, because I am participating on committees that go across the university. So it's not necessarily IT focused. Sometimes I'm the only IT person on the committee, which, as you know, they tend to turn to you and go, can you help us with this? My computer isn't working. Anyways, it really is building relationships across the campus and across the university. And for me, that, again, it's really helpful and relevant, because number one, I get a better feel and understanding for other things that are happening across the campus. I may not be aware of it because I'm IT focused. I might not be focused in health sciences, but there's a whole slew of stuff that's happening in that space. And, again, building that relationship, that if someone in health sciences needs something, they can reach out to me. It could be an IT question. They know me from the committee. They have an IT question, may not be relevant to what I do, but they are comfortable reaching out to say, hey, Paula, have this issue, have a question. Can you help me with it? And it's providing that support to sort of non-IT folks and bringing and building that bridge with other areas across the campus. And, as I said, it's understanding what they do as well, what their priorities are and what they need to deliver on. And sometimes there's opportunities that you can help support what they're doing in a, maybe a non-official way, but again, it's building out that relationship and building your reputation as well, that, you're someone that they can rely on, that, will help, when they need the help. So it's just, again, building relationship and building bridges.
Yeah, that's great. And thank you for that. And thanks for the good work that you do across campus. I think it's really interesting. A lot of people are interested in moving into leadership positions, but a lot of the opportunities that become available are based on trust. So especially when you're working in an environment already, we function from a knowing of others and trusting others. So doors open when you've built trust and when you've created those relationships, and opportunities that might not otherwise come to you can sometimes come to you, whether they be the volunteer opportunities or other leadership roles and opportunities as well. So thank you for sharing that. I think it is really critical for people to think about. It's show me. It's the outcome driven aspect of being part of the McMaster community, and the importance of having that sense of being one with the rest of, we're all colleagues here. And I think that's being part of that and having those relationships is so critically important, and you do it so well. So thank you, Paula.
Oh, you're welcome. And sometimes you'll get, involved in other committees and in other areas because you've done one thing, they're aware of you and they know who you are. So oftentimes when other opportunities come up, they'll, reach out to you to say, hey, this is happening. Are you interested? So it just kind of builds on itself as well, too.
It really does. It really does. So thank you for that. And I know we're near end of time here. I want to thank Paula today for her wonderful contributions, both to the institution, to UTS, and to our McMaster IT community. And Paula, thank you for being courageous. And I know this isn't your favorite thing to be in the limelight, but it's wonderful to be able to showcase you, have this conversation with you. It's always a great opportunity for me when we get to chat, but I love that other people have got to know you a little bit better through this conversation as well. and understand you and your career and your accomplishments. And I think you should be really pleased with the work that you've done. I know you've got a lot of wonderful opportunities yet ahead of you. And so congratulations to you on everything that you've been doing.
Thank you. And thanks for the opportunity. Really appreciate it.